Pregnancy.
Yeah.
Miracle of life, right. Or maybe the ultimate emotional leverage.
That's quite the opener.
Well, picture this. What if a positive pregnancy test suddenly, I don't know, wiped your slate clean,
Yeah.
opened every door, made you untouchable?
Uh-huh.
Would the stork suddenly be putting in serious overtime?
It's a provocative thought experiment, isn't it? It forces you to look at something we hold, well, almost sacred,
Yeah.
and consider it as currency,
Ah.
potential currency.
Yeah.
It's pretty unsettling, really.
It really is how quickly that ideal of selfless motherhood crashes into just human desires, strategic thinking even.
Imagine that world for a second. Pregnancy is the ultimate shield. No criticism sticks, you get a free pass.
Totally. How many unexpected blessings would suddenly pop up?
Right. It makes you question the power inherently tied to being pregnant.
It's discomforting because it just lays bare this tension. We have this, idealized picture,
Mm-hmm.
but the potential for it to be, well, gamed feels very real too.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is how that tension plays out in our judgments, our assumptions, day to day.
Absolutely. I saw this comment online. It was chilling. Someone's ex threatened them,
Yeah.
saying, if you leave, I'll tell everyone you faked a miscarriage just to trap me.
Wow.
And this wasn't even during the pregnancy. It was saved, like a weapon held in reserve.
That just shows how powerful even the idea, the accusation around pregnancy can be.
Yeah.
It taps into such deep societal stuff, you
Yeah.
know, assumptions, sensitivities. Why is that accusation so potent?
It tells you a lot about the tightrope women walk.
Definitely. We put motherhood way up on this pedestal.
Uncle.
Until her actions don't fit the script we wrote, then boom, she's not a saint anymore.
She's a manipulator, a villain even.
Exactly.
Right.
There are these unspoken, incredibly rigid rules for mothers.
Uh-huh.
Step outside that, especially if it looks like you're using motherhood for, personal gain, the backlash is fast and harsh.
It really shows how a woman's worth gets tied up in these, frankly, unrealistic ideals.
Yeah.
Selflessness above all.
And it's not just about faking it, is it?
No, not at all. It's
Yeah.
using the very sacredness we attach to it.
Right, to shut down an argument.
Silence critics,
Um,
avoid consequences, online, family fights, whatever.
The halo effect, basically weaponized.
Yeah, that profound reverence we have, it can accidentally create this untouchable zone.
And questioning a pregnant woman's motives feels almost taboo, doesn't it?
Totally. So how do we balance respect for this huge life event with, well, critical thinking, accountability?
That's the million-dollar question. What if having a baby is the only way you see to stop your partner leaving?
Or the only way to get your family's approval back?
Where does sheer desperation end and calculated manipulation begin? It's such a fine line.
To razor's edge, yeah.
And that's the ethical heart of it, isn't it? This messy overlap between having agency and feeling coerced,
Yeah.
between survival instincts and strategic moves.
Intent and circumstance get so tangled. Makes throwing down a simple moral judgment feel impossible sometimes.
It really does.
I heard this story. A friend mentioned someone announced their pregnancy literally the day their rival's business launched.
Oof. Coincidence.
Or like a masterclass in emotional sabotage.
Mhm.
Apparently, the mother-to-be had this serene smile that just, it made you pause.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it? The subtle, charged power dynamics that can suddenly surface.
It shows how complicated relationships get when you add the massive emotional weight of pregnancy into the mix.
So what if she genuinely, desperately wants that baby?
Right.
But she also knows, consciously or not, that it gives her this power in the relationship she never had.
Is that weaponizing?
Yeah.
Can her desires be pure if they're also strategically convenient?
I mean, where does one end and the other begin? We're diving deep into human motivation here.
Can any motive be truly pure when what you want lines up so perfectly with what you might gain?
Maybe weaponizing isn't always this conscious, malicious plot. Maybe it's more like a complex dance between real longing and, well, seeing an opportunity.
You know that saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Mm-hmm.
What if that hand is also subtly holding a dagger, one sharpened by society's own expectations?
That's a powerful twist on it. It suggests the very power we give motherhood might also create space for, well, vulnerabilities and strategies, a shadow side to the revered image.
Think historically for a second. Queens needing heirs to secure the throne.
Right. Barren women cast aside, dynasties hanging in the balance.
Has that primal power dynamic truly gone away? Or just changed its clothes?
Connecting it to history shows this pressure isn't new at all. The power plays around procreation. They've always been there.
The overt stakes might be different now, sure.
But the underlying anxieties, The potential to leverage this fundamental part of life probably still persists, just in subtler ways.
Okay, take a breath. Think about yourself for a moment. Have you ever silently judged a pregnant woman? Suspected she was using her condition somehow?
And maybe ask, what uncomfortable truth might that judgment be protecting you from?
Ooh, good question. Our judgments are often mirrors, aren't they?
They really are.
Yeah.
Revealing our own hidden fears, maybe more than anything about the person we're judging.
What anxieties get stirred up when we suspect someone's using pregnancy for gain?
It's worth thinking about. We're quick to condemn women who supposedly trap men.
Oh yeah, that narrative is strong.
But how often do men wield their power, financial, physical, societal privilege as weapons every single day, and nobody bats an eye?
It's such a stark imbalance when you put it like that.
The intense scrutiny on a pregnant woman's actions versus the often free pass given to other forms of power, especially male power, it points to a real societal bias.
Okay, tough hypothetical. What's worse? A woman having an unwanted child just to keep up appearances,
Mhm.
or using the idea of pregnancy, maybe deceitfully,
Mhm.
as a desperate escape from danger. Horrible choice either way.
It's a brutal dilemma. It forces you to confront the human cost of rigid morality.
Puts a harsh light on situations where deception might feel like the only tool for survival. Shatters easy right-wrong boxes.
Definitely. And look at custody battles.
No.
How often is that plea, in the best interest of the child, truly about the child?
And how often is it a perfectly acceptable weapon used with surgical precision?
Sadly, kids can become pawns. And that phrase, best interest of the child, has so much emotional power, it's incredibly effective as a tool.
So, announcing a pregnancy to stop a divorce,
Mm?
maybe to snag a promotion,
Yeah.
or just guilt-trip family. Where's your personal line?
And be honest with yourself, does that line shift depending on how much you like the woman involved?
Exactly, be honest.
These quick scenarios force you to look at your own internal boundaries, your hidden biases.
It shows how subjective weaponizing can be, often swayed by our feelings about the person.
Yeah, and think about this contradiction. We champion a woman's right to choose.
Bodily autonomy.
But we also pile on this immense expectation of maternal purity, almost sainthood.
Can those two things even coexist? Or does one just constantly undermine the other?
It feels like a fundamental clash in our values. The demand for this perfect mother figure can directly conflict with her autonomy, her ability to make choices for herself. It's a kind of double bind.
I knew this guy, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely adamant his ex faked symptoms, lied about dates, everything, just to trap him.
Wow, intense.
He said, she didn't want a baby, she wanted me broken.
Hmm.
Who do you instinctively believe in that scenario? It's a gut reaction, isn't it?
These messy personal conflicts are so hard. They show how tough it is to know the truth, the real motives, when emotions are high and stories clash.
There are often multiple truths happening at once.
Exactly. And sometimes, maybe accusing a woman of weaponizing pregnancy isn't even about truth.
What's this about then?
Maybe it's rooted in resentment, a subconscious feeling that she holds a power you don't.
Yeah, he's insightful. The accusation as a mask for feeling envious or powerless yourself.
Yeah. Whose perspective are we amplifying when we label her actions manipulative?
Social media loves the pregnant and glowing story, right?
Oh, absolutely. The perfect bump picture.
But what happens when that glow seems, I don't know, strategically timed? Used to deflect from bad behavior.
Suddenly it's hormones making her irrational or calculated manipulation.
Hypocrisy can be breathtaking.
That idealized media image sets up such narrow expectations. When real life gets messy, the judgment can be extreme, unfair. Shows a big gap between the ideal and the real.
Okay, real talk. Be brutally honest with yourself listening right now. If you were cornered, desperate, in pregnancy, or even just suggesting it was your only way out.
Would you hesitate? Don't give the polite answer. Give the real one.
Right, that question cuts through the abstract moral stuff, forces you to confront what you might actually do when survival feels threatened.
Consider this. She gets pregnant. He stays. Years later, she admits she stopped birth control without telling him.
He calls her a liar. She sees herself as a survivor.
Who gets to define that truth? The power of the narrative is huge.
It really is. That captures the ambiguity perfectly. Betrayal to one, self-preservation to another, and whoever frames it often wins the perception battle.
Now, let's flip the whole script. Imagine men could get pregnant.
Oh, okay.
How radically would our stories about power, coercion, this whole idea of weaponization, how would they change?
Would the word even mean the same thing?
That thought experiment is so revealing. It forces you to see how much our perceptions are shaped by ingrained gender dynamics, Would weaponization even hit the same way?
We really cling to this idea of pregnancy being pure, sacred,
Yeah.
untouched by messy human motives.
But if we admit it might not always be, what does that say about family, love, obligation, the bedrock stuff?
It's terrifying for some people to even consider.
That deep desire for a pure pregnancy probably comes from needing stability, certainty in our core relationships. Facing the complex reality feels destabilizing.
Remember those queens needing heirs?
Yeah.
For centuries, women faced immense pressure.
Were all those strategic conceptions weaponization? Or just survival tactics in a male-dominated system? History gives you pause.
Looking back complicates our modern judgments, doesn't it? Actions we'd label manipulation today might have been absolutely necessary for survival or advancement back then.
Maybe we're framing this wrong. What if the real weapon isn't pregnancy itself?
What is it then?
What if it's society's obsession with controlling female bodies?
Yeah.
Reproductive power. Then the accusation becomes the weapon.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Focusing on societal control. Suggesting the act of accusing her is actually about reinforcing those power structures.
What if condemning a woman for weaponizing pregnancies says less about her and more about your own fear of female power you can't control?
Something to chew on, definitely. Condemnation is a defense mechanism against feeling threatened by shifting power.
You might still think, okay, some pregnancies are used as weapons, others aren't.
Sure.
But who appointed you the judge in these incredibly complex human dramas?
Right. What criteria are we even using, and where did those criteria come from?
Pregnancy itself isn't inherently a weapon. Of course not.
But in the hands of someone desperate, or malicious, or just systematically disadvantaged, what can't be turned into one?
That's the key insight. The potential for weaponization isn't in the thing itself. It's in the context, the intent, the power imbalances.
So let's circle back. If that pregnancy, real or imagined, was your only lifeline, what choice would you really make?
That uncomfortable truth is often the most revealing one.
That question is meant to linger, isn't it? Resist easy answers. Keep you reflecting.
Absolutely.
And if this whole conversation has stirred something up in you, made you uneasy, good.
Yeah.
Share it. Talk about it with someone who sees it all in black and white.
See if their certainty holds up. Engaging with different views, even uncomfortable ones, is how we grow.
What if her so-called weaponized pregnancy isn't a calculated move at all?
What if it's more like a primal scream? A desperate response to a system that's already disempowered her in countless other ways.
That reframes it completely, puts it in a wider societal context.
So which is worse, allegedly weaponizing a pregnancy for safety, or a society that creates conditions where that feels like a viable strategy?
It's hard to untangle. It shifts the focus towards societal responsibility, doesn't it? Away from just individual blame.
And think about the scrutiny. We dissect a woman's pregnancy motives like it's a corporate takeover, demand total transparency.
While men's life choices often just get a shrug, the double standard is blinding sometimes.
That difference in scrutiny really highlights potential biases worth examining.
Imagine being falsely accused of faking something so intimate, so vulnerable.
The violation of that.
Could you still see the accuser as purely rational? Or would you suspect their own agenda?
It underscores the deep emotional damage such accusations cause.
Okay, personal inventory time. Think about when you've used your own vulnerabilities. Illness, sadness, fear. Maybe to get something you wanted or needed.
Was that strategic? Or was it just survival in your own context?
Drawing those parallels can build empathy, a more nuanced view of motivation.
We sometimes praise a woman for being strong, carrying on with a pregnancy under duress.
Yeah, she's so strong.
But what if that strength is just the absence of any other real choice?
Sometimes apparent strength is really just a lack of options. Limited agency.
A family lawyer once said, in family court, the womb is the most fiercely contested real estate on earth.
Chilling. But it rings true, doesn't it?
It powerfully shows the immense legal, emotional, societal weight tied to pregnancy and parenthood.
What about the ethics when a woman uses pregnancy to escape poverty, knowing it ties her to a man who was careless, maybe even coercive?
Is that some kind of twisted justice? Or just swapping one cage for another?
It's such a complex ethical knot.
Yeah.
No easy answers, only competing factors and potential fallout.
We like to think of women who strategically use pregnancy as these rare monsters. Exceptions.
Right. Not like us.
But what if it's more of a spectrum? Many people hovering near that line in quiet desperation we never see.
Maybe these situations are more common, more nuanced than our stories admit, fueled by struggles kept hidden.
You don't have to be a calculating mastermind to leverage a pregnancy.
Yep.
You just need to be human, vulnerable, and deeply want something. Isn't that universal?
That really strips away the idea of pure malice, centers it on basic human vulnerability and desire.
So who benefits most when we paint these women as crazy or evil?
Does that serve truth? Or just keep the status quo comfortable? Follow the power, right?
Examining who gains from a narrative often reveals the underlying power dynamics, the biases.
Think about how society's views have changed. We used to sort of applaud women for catching a husband with a baby.
Then we condemned it.
Now we dissect motives like surgeons. What if the issue isn't the woman, but these constantly shifting, impossible standards we set?
That historical view shows how attitudes have been all over the place, makes fair judgment really hard.
Maybe Jung was onto something with the shadow idea.
How so?
The more intensely we idealize motherhood, the bigger and darker the shadow it casts. And in that shadow, what survival tactics take root?
Using psychological ideas like the shadow self can offer deep insights into the complex, unspoken parts of human behavior and our societal ideals.
There's a story you tell yourself, isn't there, about good women and bad women regarding pregnancy.
What uncomfortable parts of your own life might that story be helping you avoid?
Oof, that's deep introspection territory. Looking at our own biases, maybe uncomfortable truths.
Have you ever felt so completely powerless
Yeah,
that any leverage, even something morally iffy, felt like gasping for air?
that's a primal feeling. Connecting to that powerlessness can build empathy, a more nuanced view.
There are no purely innocent motives when survival, love, immense societal pressure all collide in one person.
To demand purity there is just demanding the impossible.
Acknowledging that complex interplay challenges those easy black and white judgments.
Maybe she isn't weaponizing pregnancy at all.
Go on.
Maybe pregnancy itself is weaponizing her, turning her into this object for everyone else's desires, fears, judgments. Complete reversal.
That's a radical reframing. Suggests she might be the one being acted upon, not the one fully in control.
Imagine choosing. Stick to a pristine moral code or ensure your child's survival in a harsh world. Which part of you gets sacrificed?
That stark choice highlights the gap between abstract morals and the tough realities of survival and being a parent.
You can't even start to understand weaponization of pregnancy until you first acknowledge the profound, sometimes terrifying vulnerability pregnancy itself can mean for a woman in an uncaring world.
Recognizing that vulnerability is absolutely crucial for any kind of empathetic, full understanding.
If society systematically denies women economic power, social power,
Yeah.
is it really shocking that some might leverage the one area where they do have unique power procreation in ways that make that same society uncomfortable?
That powerfully links individual actions back to bigger societal inequalities, forces us to see the systemic context.
Your judgment of her weaponized pregnancy is never just about her.
It's a confession.
Yeah, a confession of your own anxieties, about control, biology, the messy truth of human desire.
Brings us back to judgment as a window into our own internal landscape, our fears, our beliefs.
When your daughters, your granddaughters, face these same pressures, what will you offer them? Swift judgment.
Or will you have learned to question the rules of the game itself? The future needs more nuance.
That forward look encourages us to think about the long-term impact of our views now. What world are we building?
Maybe the only woman not weaponizing or being weaponized by her pregnancy is one totally outside societal expectations.
But does that woman even exist? Is that kind of freedom possible? Philosophical rabbit hole indeed.
That paradox just highlights how pervasive, how invisible societal norms are, even in our most personal lives.
Look, I've wrestled with this, confronted my own biases, and honestly, I don't have neat answers.
And maybe that's okay.
That lingering discomfort, maybe that's the most important takeaway.
Embracing the discomfort, the ambiguity, that's often the first step toward deeper understanding.
We're all involved in this. Our unspoken expectations, our quick judgments, our silences. It's not just her problem. It reflects on all of us.
It underscores our collective responsibility in shaping these narratives, keeping these dynamics going.
Remember that first question, miracle or leverage?
Yeah.
The uncomfortable truth. It can be both at the same time. And that duality is what unsettles us so much.
That brings us full circle,
Yeah.
acknowledging that core tension, that inherent unsettling ambiguity.
You don't get to decide if she's using pregnancy as a shield or a sword.
Until
You've walked a mile in shoes that society both idealizes and reviles. Empathy means we have to try.
True empathy demands trying to grasp perspectives way beyond our own experiences and assumptions.
If your gut is still twisting right now, excellent,
Why, excellent.
because it means something got hit. Listen again. Find the raw nerve this touched. That's where uncomfortable truths live.
Engaging with our own emotional reactions can unlock deeper self-awareness, a better grasp of complex issues.
If this whole deep dive made you argue with me in your head, great. Now share it with someone who will argue back out loud.
True understanding isn't built on agreement. It's forged in the friction of different views.
Robust dialogue, diverse viewpoints, absolutely essential for growth, for really getting multifaceted issues.
This has been the deep dive. We're not here to give you answers.
We're here to ask, why might you be so afraid of what women do with the limited power they're often so grudgingly allowed?